Do you want to double the resources you pick up while farming in Warframe and make farming feel like pulling a slot machine with every drop? With the new Komai and the 5 Fates update, 3 new mods have been introduced to do exactly that. I'm Tipsy and today we'll be going over how to acquire these 3 new mods and make farming them feel like a breeze. The 3 Beast Companion mods in question are Loyal Retriever, which gives you a base chance to double the amount of either resources or credits you pick up. The other 2 are Resourceful Retriever and Prosperous Retriever, do essentially the same, but the thing they provide are a higher chance while focusing solely on either resources or credits. This lets you use them for the desired farming goal, or you can just use Loyal Retriever to get the best of both worlds. First we'll be going over how to get Loyal Retriever, then Resourceful Retriever, and finally Prosperous Retriever. Feel free to use the timestamps to skip to the mod you are looking for. To farm the tags needed to buy these mods, you will need a Tranq Rifle. If you don't have one, head to Fortuna and talk to the business to actually acquire your own Tranq Rifle, which will need to be equipped into your gear wheel so you can use it in the open world areas to farm the tags needed to actually buy the mods. But before we dive in, I will quickly cover how lures work in the game, as I will refer to this section multiple times in the video. So certain animals can be pretty hard to find sometimes, and if you are having trouble actually locating a specific animal in the open world, you can then use a lure item which guarantees that you will find the animal you're looking for. However, it's still up to you to actually catch the animal before it runs away from you. Lures can be found at hunting vendors in each hub, Master Tasune in Cetus, Sun in the Necrolist, and the business in Fortuna. These hunters will sell lures, but keep in mind that they will require standing with each respective syndicate. So if you can't, I recommend getting all the lures since they are one-time purchase and make hunting specific animals much easier. You can still find all the animals without a lure of course, but for rare animals it can be highly useful having a lure for the certain animal. So how does lures actually work? Once you acquire a lure, you will unlock markers on your map in the open world areas. These markers will indicate animal track locations. When you reach the spot, you will be able to find something to start tracking the animal. Once you start tracking the animal, some footprints will appear and will guide you to the lure location from that point on. Once you arrive at the lure location, take out your lure on 2 and aim it so the distorted dot is in the middle of the area. Do this until the animal responds. At some point you will have to keep the dot inside a little white box to complete the minigame. Once done successfully, the animal will then spawn nearby, so take out your Tranq Rifle and be ready to spot it and actually catch it. Keep in mind that certain flying animals might spawn in the air, and try not to be near or in combat, as this might actually scare the animals away from you. Which is why I highly recommend using Ira if you have access to her, as she can turn invisible, making the hunting a lot easier. She also has a sleep arrow with a AoE effect which works similarly to the Tranq Rifle, so you can basically use this as a AoE Tranq Rifle. And as some lures will require high to max rank with a syndicate, you could ask in your clan chat or ask another player with the lure to help out. But remember, tags are not tradable, so you will have to be in affinity radius when the capture takes place and try not to scare away the animal. Once that is done, you are then ready to begin farming for the mod you wanna get. The Loyal Retriever, which adds a chance to double resources and credits on pickup, can be bought in Cetus from Master Tasune and can be found under the trade tags dialog option. The Loyal Retriever will cost 1 of each animal type in the plains. 1 plains Kuaka tag, 1 common Condroc tag, 1 Ostia Veska Kavat tag, and lastly 1 coastal Mergoo tag. Then to gather all these tags, all you have to do is catch each of the animals and you will be rewarded with their tags. And if you don't have a Tranq Rifle, we went over where to get that earlier in the video. So the first tag is gonna be the plains Kuaka, which is the most common type of the Kuakas, which look a little bit like a rodent and can be found all over the plains of Eidolon. So you just have to take out your Tranq Rifle and fly around the plains of Eidolon while listening for the squeaky noises, as this is an indicator that there is a Kuaka nearby. I also recommend doing this during the day on the plains, as night animals will be out of the spawn rotation, leaving only Kuakas, Condrocs and Mergoos, giving you a higher chance of finding them. Keep in mind that the Kuakas comes in 3 different rarities. The Plains Kuaka is the most common one that we need, but there's also Ashran and Ghost Kuakas. So just be sure to check which tag you actually got before extracting, but this one should be fairly simple to get, as well as the next one. So for the second tag, which is the common Condroc, which is also the most common type of the Condrocs, but they will look kind of like a vulture, and these birds can be found all over the plains of Eidolon. So just keep flying around and you should find a group eventually. They're usually not too hard to find, but if you are having trouble, you can always use the Condroc lure to spawn one in. Just remember, the Condrocs might spawn in the sky above you, so I highly recommend having your Arcwing ready. And for the third tag, which is the Ostia Veska Kavat, Kavat, which is an animal that can only be found at nighttime in the plains of Eidolon. And once the plains is at night, these should be found in abundance all around the plains, as they are just roaming around basically. Which is also why I recommend farming the other animals at daytime, as these might actually take up the spawn slot for the other animals. And a little tip for actually finding them, sometimes you can follow the sound of gunfire, as they often engage with the nearby Grineers. And once you find them, just shoot them with your Tranq Rifle and catch them. And for the final tag, which is the Coastal Mergoo. The Coastal Mergoo can sometimes be pretty tricky to find, so if you don't have a lure, it might take you some time. I recommend roaming around the coastal areas and large body of waters while you're exploring. Look for them in pairs while flying in the sky, or at certain times you can also find them alone on the ground. Once you have caught one of each of the required animals, head back to Master Tensune and purchase your Loyal Retriever mod. Then you can equip it to one of your beast companions like a Kubrodon or Kavat, and that's it. Now you have the bonus chance at doubling your resources and credits when you pick up anything. And that's basically how you get your Loyal Retriever mod. And the next mod we'll be going over is the Resourceful Retriever. The Resourceful Retriever is a fantastic resource mod and definitely a must-have, as it provides up to an 18% chance to double any resource pickups. This mod can be purchased from Sun in the Necrolist, but you'll need to get specific tags from hunting in the Cambion Drift to actually buy it. The following tags you will need are 1 Sly Vulpaphyla tag, 1 purple Velocipod tag, 1 Burrowing Cryptilex tag, 1 common Avichea tag, 1 Amethyst Naxifera tag, 1 Avichea Predasite tag, and lastly 1 Umber Undazoa. And to gather all the tags needed, you will have to use your Tranq Rifle and simply find and capture the required animals, and you will be rewarded with their tags. The first tag is the Sly Vulpaphyla, which can be found in the Cambion Drift and looks kind of like a large fox. These can sometimes be spotted fighting other enemies in the Cambion Drift, and if you're having trouble finding them, you can always use a lure to increase your chances. This animal can also be used to craft a companion through the vivification at Sun in the Necrolist. And the second tag is the purple Velocipod, which can be found around the Cambion Drift and often find in higher altitudes or resting on rocks or near waterways junctions. You can usually find a small group just outside of the Necrolist around the Odulatum, where you first zone in the zone. Unfortunately, there is no lure for this one, so you will have to find them on your own, but there's a little fun fact about these guys, as you can actually mount them like a K-drive and fly around on them. And for the third tag, which is the Burrowing Cryptilex, or as I refer to them as the Quackers of the Cambion Drift. These can be found around the Cambion Drift in various areas, but unlike the Quackers, these creatures will actually attack you, which makes them a little bit easier to catch once you spot them. You can usually find a few around the Catabolic Gutter area, or if needed you can always use a lure to actually catch these. And for the fourth tag, which is the common Avichea, this is a flying creature which can be found high in the skies of the Cambion Drift. These can be kind of tricky to spot while flying around, though they are most commonly found in the air. You can also sometimes find them on the ground. But I recommend just flying around the map's edge to find them. And if you're struggling, you can always use a lure to help you out here. And for the fifth tag, which is the Amethyst Naxifera, this one can be a little bit tricky to find, and unfortunately there's no lure for this animal. They can usually be located in caves like the Catabolic Gutter, hanging from the ceilings around the Cambion Drift. A good indicator is there's a green puddle they leave below them. When you or animal then walks over this puddle, the Naxifera will dive down from the ceiling to try and attack, and then slowly retract back up to the ceiling. You will then have to bait them by stepping on the green spot and shoot at their fleshy tendrils, since their carapace is actually a small shield. And for the sixth tag, which is the Avichea Predasite, this Predasite is actually a large predatory creature that can be found roaming all over the Cambion Drift, and they are often seen hunting smaller creatures or engaging in combat with the infested. And to capture these, you will have to hit them twice with the Tranq Rifle, and they can also be used to craft a companion through the vivification at Sun. And you can use a lure with them, but keep in mind that this lure will require you to be rank 5 with the family. And for the final tag, which is the Umber Undazoa, this is an infested creature you can find in the Cambion Drift. Usually these can be found in the southern region, but they can be a little bit difficult to locate, but using a lure will make it a lot easier to track them down. But keep in mind that these creatures will try and flee from you, so you'll have to be quickly and catch them before they run away. Once you have captured each one of these animals, return to the Sun in the Necrolist and purchase the Resourceful Retriever mod. Then just equip it to a beast companion like the Kubrodon or the Kavat, and you are all set to improve your resource farming efficiency, with a higher chance to double the resources you pick up. And the next mod we'll be going over is the Prosperous Retriever. The Prosperous Retriever is a more niche mod compared to the other two, as it only boosts your credit farming efficiency. While the other two mods are great for general use on any build, Prosperous Retriever is specifically for maxing out your credits. This mod can be purchased from the business in Fortuna, but you will need to gather specific tags from animals found in Obvelis. And to buy the Prosperous Retriever, you'll need the following tags: 1 Sunny Pobber tag, 1 White-breasted Virmink tag, 1 Flossy Sawgaw tag, 1 Spotted Bolarola tag, 1 Dappled Horask tag, 1 Sentinel Stover tag, and lastly 1 Brindle Kubrodon tag. And now let's go over how to gather each of these tags, which can be found in Obvelis. And the first tag is gonna be the Sunny Pobber, which is a small creature that can be found all around Obvelis. They are normally found in groups, and they are kind of like the Kuaka from the plains again. They flee from the smallest things, but they shouldn't be too hard to find, and then you're having trouble, you can always use a lure to actually do the trick. And the second tag is the White-breasted Virmink, and the White-breasted Virmink is kind of a bigger ferret fox kind of a thing that can be found in Obvelis. Normally you can find these around the rocky landscape, looking for pobbers to hunt, so you might be able to find both the Pobber and also a Virmink together, but having a lure can make hunting them much easier. And for the third tag is the Flossy Sawgaw, and the Sawgaws are flying creatures that can often be found circling around higher areas in Obvelis. But you can also sometimes find them on top of giant mushrooms, as they sometimes perch from up there. And again, if you don't find them while roaming around Obvelis, you can always use a lure to actually find them. And for the fourth tag is the Spotted Bolarola, and this is a little special as you can't tranquilize them normally and only on their underbellies, as they are vulnerable there. So you'll have to wait for them to lean back and actually expose their underbellies, or just see if you can actually get a lucky hit in. Also try not to get too close to them, as if they sense any danger they will curl up and roll away, making it hard to capture. Especially if you don't have Ira as a frame and can turn invisible and get close to them without having to worry about anything. And for the fifth tag is the Dappled Horask, and the Horasks are kind of like a little misformed dog, and then can be found in Obvelis. These can also sometimes crawl on the ground, only exposing their head at times, but if you're having trouble, a lure could do the trick for this one. Just be aware that if you're using a lure, they will leave a toxin trail behind, which can hurt you. Also, they need to be shot twice to actually tranquilize them. And for the sixth tag is the Sentinel Stover, which are kind of like a proto-Kubru and can normally be found inside caves in Obvelis. And these animals will also take 2 tranq shots to actually capture them. And they are aggressive, so they might attack you if you get too close to them, so just keep that in mind. And for the final tag is the Brindle Kubrodon, and these are a little bit bigger and aggressive animals that can be found in Obvelis. You can sometimes find them around Orican cooling towers, and they will take 2 shots to actually take down. And again, you can use a lure for these, but this will require you to be rank 5 with Vox United. And once you have collected one of each tags, you can return to the business in Fortuna to purchase the Prosperous Retriever mod and equip it to one of your beast companions, such as the Kubru or the Kavat, and then start having a chance at doubling your credits while you're farming. And lastly, if all of this seems like too much of a hassle, you can always buy them from another player, and this is relatively cheap. So for the last method of actually obtaining these mods would be buying it from another player, and this is one of the fastest and easiest ways to actually obtaining these mods, as they currently are around 10 plat on the marketplace and could be worth the trade. So if you know how to run relics and sell prime junk, then this could shorten the farming time quite a bit, as just a few relics ones should net you over 10 plat, and you will not have to worry about lures or finding the right rarity of the mob and so on. But do keep in mind that capturing animals in both the plains and Obvelis will give you standing with their syndicate, so it could be worth the hunt to get a little bit of standing with each syndicate. And that's it, that's basically how you obtain each of the Retriever mods in Warframe. It shouldn't be too hard, and if you're having any issues, you can always just buy it for plat, and it shouldn't be too much of a trade. So hopefully you found the video helpful. If you did, feel free to like the video and maybe subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one, so peace out and bye bye.